I shall never hear the Connacht Dove the same again. How lovely to begin with Sir David there. It's 9 o'clock. Good morning. This is BH Broadcasting House. I'm Paddy O'Connell. Hello. The headlines. The government's examining an accelerated appeals process for post office branch managers wrongly convicted in a computer software scandal. Air accident investigators in the US say that if a panel had come off a passenger jet at a high altitude, the consequences would have been tragic. And Palestinian officials say 6 people have been killed in an airstrike in the occupied West Bank, and an Israeli border officer also died in violence. Ahead, the post office will be stripped of its role in the software scandal appeals process. One of the lead campaigners is standing by live. Britain deals with the aftermath of a deluge.
This layer of sandbags is about 3 feet high now to try and stop the sewage water coming through.
Lorries, and that were just speeding through, and it was like a tsunami coming through the driveway.
Why is the UK full of selfish, stupid car drivers? The AA is standing by. Political parties kick off a long year ahead. We bring Ken Clarke and Margaret Beckett together, the Lord and the Dane. Frank Skinner talks touring, swearing and religion.
I do pray in the garden at night, but I'll be honest, it coincides with letting the dog out for a final wee. I look up at the starry sky and think this is a good place to address my maker.
And on the papers, Stephanie Boyce, who ran the Law Society, Steve Richards, the broadcaster, and Lara Spirit from the Times Red Box. Now, on Sunday the 7th of January, the news is read by Alan Smith. Hello.
Good morning, Paddy. The Justice Secretary is exploring how to offer more help to sub-postmasters who were wrongly convicted during the scandal involving the faulty Horizon computer software. In a move first reported by the Sunday Times, Alex Chalk is said to be considering whether the Post Office can be stripped of its role in the appeals process. Here's our political correspondent, Damien Grammaticus.
There remain hundreds of people who were convicted based on information from the Post Office's now discredited Horizon computer system who have yet to have those convictions quashed. The Post Office acted as the prosecutor when it brought the cases against its sub-postmasters and retains a role when those individuals appeal. In some cases, it's opposed their attempts to clear their names. So it's understood the Justice Secretary is looking into the possibility that the Post Office could be stripped of its role in appeals, and whether the Crown Prosecution Service could take over.
Air accident investigators in the United States say the loss of part of the fuselage from a Boeing passenger jet could have been tragic. They've begun examining why the section came away from the 737 MAX 9 plane in mid-air over Oregon on Friday. Jennifer Hominy from the National Transportation Safety Board told a news conference the incident would have been a lot worse if the aircraft had climbed to 35,000 feet.
Think about what happens when you're in cruise. Everybody's up and walking. Folks don't have seatbelts on. They're going to restrooms. The flight attendants are providing service to passengers. We could have ended up with something so much more tragic, and we're really fortunate that that did not occur here.
The UK regulator, the Civil Aviation Authority, has written to all foreign owners of the MAX 9 saying they won't be allowed into British airspace until inspections have taken place. The Israeli army says it has completed the dismantling of the Hamas command structure in the northern Gaza Strip. Palestinian officials in the occupied West Bank say an Israeli airstrike earlier killed 6 people in the city of Jenin. Our correspondent Shana Khalil reports from Jerusalem.
Israel's military said it had successfully disrupted Hamas in northern Gaza and that the group was now operating sporadically without commanders. The Israeli army says it's now focused on dismantling Hamas in the south and the center of the territory. In the occupied West Bank, the Palestinian Health Ministry says 6 people have been killed in an Israeli airstrike, which targeted a gathering in the city of Jenin. Intense clashes have been reported there. Israel's military said an Israeli border officer was killed and several others were wounded when their vehicle struck an explosive device.
The Independent Parliamentary Standards Authority, which oversees MPs' expenses, has referred claims about the Pensions Minister Paul Maynard to its compliance officer for further investigation. The Sunday Times is reporting allegations that Mr Maynard broke rules by using taxpayers' money to fund Conservative Party work and campaigning. The claims centre on his use of his constituency office, for which he receives parliamentary funding. Mr Maynard told the newspaper he believes the arrangements he made were appropriate but he'll seek clarification from IFSA and abide by any findings it makes. A report on how to curb absences from school has called for extra sports activities outside lessons and for there to be investment in youth clubs. The research by the Conservative think tank, the Centre for Social Justice, also warns a large number of parents aren't committed to their children attending class every day. The Department for Education said parents had a duty to make sure their children go to school. Here's our Education Editor, Branwen Jeffries.
Almost twice as many children in England missed a significant amount of school in the last academic year compared with before the pandemic, with head teachers describing a broken social contract. This report from the Centre for Social Justice says multiple solutions are needed, from increasing mental health support to cover every school to massively extending a government-funded mentoring project. It says new polling suggests just under a third of parents feel the pandemic has shown going to school every day is not essential.
And services on the London Underground will begin to wind down tonight ahead of a complete walkout by thousands of RMT union members for most of the week. Around 3 million journeys are made every working day on the tube, and the strike over pay and conditions will bring major disruption. The RMTs described the offer of a 5% pay rise as unacceptable. Transport for London insisted it was the most it could afford.
Live on BBC Radio 4. Hello, this is Broadcasting House. In this half hour, we'll hear from Frank Skinner, Ken Clark and Margaret Beckett, although in separate items. Parliament returns tomorrow to a gathering storm over the post office scandal. Over 15 years, more than 700 branch managers were convicted of false accounting, theft and fraud, all based on faulty software information. Just 93 convictions have been overturned, and the Sunday Times this morning reports the Justice Secretary Alex Chalk is looking at stripping the Post Office of its role in appeals. The chair of the Justice Select Committee is Sir Bob Neal. We rang him this morning. He told us he supports the idea.
I think it is really important that we speed up both the compensation process and also the appeals process. A way forward in this case is certainly the one that the Justice Secretary Alex Chalk is looking at, which is inviting the Crown Prosecution Service to take over the prosecution. The only thing I think we need to bear in mind is this: the Director of Public Prosecutions has to take that decision themselves. They have to do it independently. I'm sure they look at it. They have to look at each case independently on its merits. You have to do that. I think you probably need extra resources. And then the final point is, of course, the Court of Appeal would have to make time to hear these cases. And so there'd need to be the agreement of the Lady Chief Justice to make judges available. And that might mean other cases going further down the queue.
The issue was long ignored in the media, including on this programme, except for a few journalists at Private Eye, and Nick Wallace, who crowdfunded to sit in court. His Radio 4 series won widespread praise. But now an ITV drama has put the whole affair into the place where the local post office manager is perhaps most known and understood: the living room. One of those spotlighted in the series is Joe Hamilton, who was accused of stealing £36,000.
Oh my God. It's just doubled right in front of my eyes. Now it says I'm £4,000 down.
It'll sort itself out, you can do. In the meantime...
Well, I was only doing what you told me.
In the meantime, you'll need to make good the loss.
I haven't got that money, and I don't know where it's gone.
I'm sorry, you are responsible for balancing your account and making good any shortfalls.
And that snippet was produced by ITV Studios and Little Gem.